Today is September 17th, Tuesday, and today I learned about scope and kind of like minimizing and maximizing, widening and shortening your scope when you're trying to think about things. Today I had, in English class actually, we were talking about this process that you go through to break down this issue that we're going to write about in our essay and basically just break it down into smaller and smaller parts. And I was really I was just thinking about scope today and just when you need to think at a larger scope and when you think at a smaller scope. So in an example like that where you need to understand something more clearly in order to do something. So that is when you need to have a smaller scope, and that's when you need to break down the whys, the whats, and the hows, break down further and further and further into smaller pieces so that you can pull an insight from that, learn more about this thing, or maybe like in a productivity sense, it's easy to break down tasks into smaller and smaller tasks so that you can take action on that thing. So ultimately, I think it's good to break something down into smaller and smaller pieces when you need to understand something more clearly and to do something with that. But you need to broaden your scope and zoom out when you're trying to when you reevaluate. I do want to make a video about evaluations and evaluating your progress. I do want to make a video about that sometime soon. But that is when you need to zoom out and broaden your scope, when you need to reevaluate your situation, understand where you are, kind of, in this situation. Yeah, so evaluating is kind of just understanding where you are right now, figure out, like, what are your stats, and then you can use those stats that you got from your evaluation to improve. So when you're in the process of learning something or just trying to get better at something, there are two main phases that you go through. The first phase is the evaluation phase. When you're just beginning, you want to know, like, where are you on your level of skill and what do you need to improve on? So your first phase of evaluation is just understanding where you are and using that information. You're zooming out, getting a big picture of, like, what you're doing and where you're at. And you use that information to transition into the next phase, which is the improvement phase. And that is when you zoom in and really look at the nitty-gritty of, like, what you are improving on and understanding deeply this thing you're trying to do or learn about. And then periodically throughout this process of learning something or getting better at something, you have to periodically zoom out and reevaluate and then zoom back in. So it's a cycle of zooming out and zooming back in so that you can evaluate where you are and make sure that you're not improving, and also just understanding where you are, understanding the situation better, and then zooming in and actually doing that improvement and actually like getting deep in the nitty-gritty of things. So your action point for today is to kind of just make sure that with whatever thing you're learning or whatever thing you're trying to do, make sure that you have these two phases, the zoom out evaluation phase and the zoom in nitty-gritty phase. Make sure that you're doing both of those things because you can't have one without the other. If you have the evaluation phase, but then you never actually get into the nitty-gritty and never actually make those changes and improvements, then you're not actually doing anything. But if you only have the nitty-gritty improvements, then you don't know where you are. You don't know in the grand scheme of things, like, you don't know if you're accomplishing your goals, your bigger, longer term goals. You don't really know, like, maybe you don't have those longer term goals. And you're just improving a lot, but you don't know, like, where you're at. So you can't have one without the other. You need both the evaluation and the improvement phase. So make sure that you are including both of these phases within whatever you're learning or trying to get better at. And this is actually transitions into another thing I was thinking about today, which is building weekly reviews and weekly routines. So every Sunday, I'm just going to try to do a quick weekly review, figure out what I'm going to be doing, like where I am now, do a quick evaluation, and then think about how I'm improving myself and what I'm doing over the next week. So yeah, just to recap, there's always an evaluation phase and there's always an improvement phase. You can't have one without the other if you want to have your maximum improvements. So make sure you have those two phases and schedule like either weekly or monthly reviews where you can go through this evaluation phase, and make sure you have a system for doing these nitty-gritty improvements. I'm actually working on a Notion template for these 1% improvement systems. I'm actually working on a Notion template for that right now, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say today. It's a bit of a shorter one today. I'm posting every single day, daily insights just like this one, talking about what I learned that day, how I applied it to my life, and how you guys can apply it to yours. So if you want to see those kind of videos, then subscribe. I will see you in tomorrow's video. Bye.